And it is 5:02, and I want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to get started. I just want to thank everyone again for joining us for the second meeting of Committee 3 within our KBE EPSB Research Practice Collaborative. Tonight's conversation is going to build directly off our first meeting. During our initial session, we explored research, reviewed national and Kentucky context, and began identifying emerging themes. Tonight, our work is going to shift toward narrowing those themes and beginning the process of drafting our recommendations. So that is what we're going to get started with. So I'll just officially call us to order. And again, as we think about our primary goals for this evening, number one, we're going to reground our work in research and shared understanding. Secondly, we want to reflect on the themes that emerged from our previous discussion. And lastly, we want to begin to narrow our focus toward areas that might inform our committee's recommendations, which there will be two. And so, do we have any committee members with us for the first time this evening? I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, if so. So if there's anybody new, if you'll give us your name, your current role, and what is one factor that helps teachers feel valued and supported? That's where we started last time. And so we'll start there again if there's any new committee members.
My name is Chelsea Tingle. Okay. I am the Director of Mathematics Education. One factor that helps teachers feel valued and supported, I believe, is having a coach and feeling connected to that coach in that school.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, and I'm Sarah Snipes. I serve as the Director of Innovation at KDE. And one factor that's coming to mind for me is just a green light culture where teachers can feel supported to kind of take a risk and learn from it.
Thank you for sharing that, sharing your perspective, and welcome to the committee meeting tonight. If there's not any other introductions, we'll move right along. Again, just revisiting our purpose and our goal. Of course, we know that KBE and EPSB are having this collaboration opportunity because they have common priorities that overlap. And so this time it was around retention, teacher retention. And so that is our collaborative effort, and that is what we're going to focus on. We know that teacher retention is not only a staffing issue, but our question leads itself to also an instructional quality issue. When educators remain in the profession and within schools, students benefit from instructional continuity, stronger relationships, and deeper professional expertise. And so, again, just grounding us in that. So we're excited to have this work that focus on that collaborative priority and common priority. Again, just a quick review of our norms. Respecting all voices, stay purpose focused. I won't read those. Cameras on if possible. I know some people may be in traveling or in other situations, but if all possible, it just helps with our engagement. All right, and so getting back to our guiding question, which is, how does creating and experience vibrant learning environments, especially in literacy and numeracy, impact educator satisfaction and support their long-term retention in the profession? So that is our guiding question for Committee 3. And so we will, this question reflects an important shift in how we're going to think about retention. We're not solely focused on recruitment or compensation, but on research that shows that working condition and instructional supports are among the strongest drivers of retention. And so, again, that leads us to our collaborative priority. And so just again, we keep that last time we talked about common understanding, shared understanding. And so our expected outcomes is our executive brief that will come from all three of the committees. And we each will have a minimum of 2 recommendations that we will send forth to both KBE and EPSB. And so if at all, we will have combined at least 6 recommendations. And as we were talking today, we also see that as we're talking about retention, there is a lot of overlap. So there may be some overlap with the other committees. And so again, that common understanding is so important, and we want to thank Christy Biggerstaff last time for giving us our literacy overview, since we're talking about literacy and numeracy, especially in this vibrant learning opportunities. Again, we have experts, and so we are giving it over to the experts. And so our expert tonight is Chelsea Tingle, Director of Mathematics, and she's going to give us an overview of the current numeracy initiatives that are happening around the Commonwealth. So I'm going to give way to her.
Thank you for that introduction. I am trying to present in Teams.
I know it's different every time, I feel like.
Yes. All right. So my job is to lead this charge with the Kentucky Numeracy Counts implementation and all the statewide efforts that have been a part of that. And that was established with House Bill 162 in 2024. And the Section 1 established that mathematics proficiency is essential for all Kentucky students to achieve the academic goals established in KRS. And it's the goal that all students have the skills necessary to demonstrate procedural skill and fluency, building from conceptual understanding to application in order to solve real-world problems. And that's really where mathematics and numeracy and daily life overlap. So numeracy is that bridge from mathematics into real world. And so that's why we use that language. And then also part of that statute was a multi-tiered systems of support for struggling learners in K-12 through the use of evidence-based mathematics instruction, intervention, and instructional strategies. And so it was established that all students in kindergarten through grade 3 need to make accelerated progress toward proficiency in mathematics based on data from a screener and a diagnostic assessment, that they receive high quality evidence-based mathematics instruction and intervention, and that it's all aligned to their grade level standards. So with this, the Kentucky Department of Education was charged with providing statewide professional learning to support kindergarten through grade 8 teachers with evidence-based mathematics instruction, instructional materials, and assessment in mathematics. We have established teacher academies, and that's also part of this, with the coaching models that are related to evidence-based practices and instruction, and the materials and assessment in mathematics. With that, we provided grants to support local districts in purchasing a KDE approved high quality instructional resource that is aligned to the standards and also includes curriculum-based professional learning to implement those new resources. And there was a metric for those grants to determine who was awarded those grants. And then also a part of this, this slide really just gives that implementation effort timeline. We've created web pages to support numeracy counts implementation, and established a newsletter for monthly communications. We have a KDE approved list of those valid and reliable screening and diagnostic assessments. For K3, there is a HQIR list for K-12 mathematics that are approved. We've awarded those 40 districts grant money for the purchase of an HQIR or associated curriculum-based professional learning. We've identified state-level partners for the Numeracy Counts Academies and established a mathematics leadership collaborative. So in talking about these, this is the exciting part that's happening across the state. We have partnership with Advanced Kentucky in providing access to algebra. So there are numerous teachers involved in this, and they are, because it is multi-year, there are multiple cohorts that are happening right now. But essentially, this group provides support in grades 6 through 8 in order to look at the standards and how can they provide that instruction in a way that would support a student accessing algebra in 8th grade. And it is a whole school system of support and alignment so that the students are set up for success in that. There is also coaching involved in that. And then in GREC, they have a section called EPIC, and they've provided the Numeracy Alliance with 168 participants that are represented by teachers from grades 3 through 8, and they're using the Carnegie Patterns Professional Learning course. So grades 3 through 5 are focused on fractions, and then 6 through 8 are proportions, ratios, and algebraic thinking. And then we also have the Kentucky Center for Mathematics Numeracy Academy, where we've had 990 teachers and coaches participate in cohort 1 in grades K through 5, and they are finishing up year 1, and it's been just an incredible journey for those teachers, and it is by Kentucky teachers for Kentucky teachers. And so that learning has been really impactful for those teachers. It does also involve coaching, but they are getting the ground level foundations of mathematics so that they're able to teach their HQIR. And many of them are saying, I now understand my HQIR better because of this professional learning that I've had, because of the Teacher Academy with this. And so we're really excited, much like with letters, you know, teachers understood how to teach the foundations in literacy because of that experience. And we are seeing some of those same experiences in this Teacher Numeracy Academy. Also, we have a partnership with PIMSR providing a Numeracy Counts Administrator Academy where they, we've got 252 administrators that are enrolled in cohort 1, and 24 of those administrators are receiving individual coaching. They are learning how to support high quality mathematics instruction in their schools, and also framing it in a way so that they support the teaching of the HQIR and the evidence-based mathematical teaching practices. And so that's been a really valuable in-person learning that has happened across the state this past year. Across the whole state, 139 districts are participating in these efforts in some way, shape, or form. So that's very exciting to see a strong participation in these academies across the state. So I would like for that to be 171, but right now we're at 139, but it will grow as we move towards the second year of implementation of some of these things. So we're excited to expand the work. We also have started the Mathematics Leadership Collaborative, where we have 24 districts participating in that. And I'll go a little bit further into that. So similar to KY Ellen, but we are targeting mathematics education specifically and in grades 4 and up, so that we're providing the support, including middle school and including those upper grade teachers in elementary school and administrators in those areas. they're having opportunities to network with other districts and learn from one another, but they're really building sustainable district level models for numeracy instruction connected to their high quality instructional resources. They're building strong systems and structures for high quality mathematics instruction, and they're getting support in this and just learning more about what a system-wide effort looks like in support of numeracy. They're creating their mathematics visions for their districts. They are looking at the IPGs and how to support a walkthrough, looking at math instruction. Just this week, I heard from a person who participated in the first round of this collaborative saying, we are still talking about that first meeting. And that was back in February. So when you hear that, when you hear district level people saying, we are still talking about this work and we want to implement more support in the area of numeracy, it's very exciting to see that movement. And so in thinking about all of these things, it's a lot of teacher support. So we're providing so much professional learning to build their capacity. And a lot of these teachers did not have much time in the area of math in their undergraduate programs or in their Option 6 programs. And so this learning has been critical to them to understand mathematics foundations and to teach those to their students at grade level. And so all of those academies really involve coaching and providing that support. You know, they understand that those that are participating in any of these academies understand that fluency is not just being fast. It is about being efficient, being flexible with your strategies and being accurate. So there's so much to this that everybody is learning from it. And we really just want to equip all that are participating to be better at teaching math. You know, math has such a stigma of, you know, it's almost a badge of honor to say, I'm not a math person. And so we're trying to fix that. And we want all to say that we support math because it is such a critical piece to daily life. And so we want students to make that connection and teachers to make that connection. And we believe that when teachers feel more confident in their instruction, that is a connection to their students and that bleeds to their students. And so when we can make teachers more confident in that area and their teaching, we know that the students benefit. And it's just really exciting work that's happening across the state right now. There's a KCM Math Hub where you can see videos of instruction happening. We're really transitioning to making sure that students have representations in front of them and that they're using concrete models in front of them to help them build those foundational skills in math, because we know that provides benefits even into middle school using those manipulatives. And so, you know, if you talk about math instruction today and you were to walk into a math classroom, I would hope that you would see some actual tools, the representatives, hands-on materials that they have in their classrooms, and that student discourse that they're talking about it, because it's so important that they are talking to their peers about what they're learning, that those teachers are allowing that productive struggle. And that's all part of the effective mathematics teaching practices. And all of this supports that work. And we're seeing early positive impacts from this work that's happening across the state right now. So we're encouraged by this data. I know there's a teacher or two in this call, and if you're not in the Teacher Academy, applications opened this week. So we would love to have you in that. But we're very excited about this work moving forward. And those are the slides that I have for now. Do you have questions?
Are there any questions around what we heard? I know it's a lot to digest.
Hi, Lou.
Hi, Chelsea. I have been having a lot of conversations with Mickey and the team about high quality instructional resources and letters and how we can work with school leaders, professional developers. I see Kathy House is on the call with our co-ops to help teachers reconcile the tension that they feel. And I know you hear too, when they're implementing evidence-based practices that feel restrictive or constrained, perhaps even scripted. And I always love to have this conversation with Mickey because I leave really enthused by a common understanding about how important it is for teachers to have the kind of instructional autonomy that they really desire in the profession. Jokingly, I say, let's bring sexy back to teaching, where teachers can actually, be at their highest performance and make their professional choices and defined autonomy. I understand that. I'm not suggesting it's a free for all, but could you talk with us about how you eschew the notion that evidence-based practice is somehow dumbing down the act of teaching or scripting it or constraining teachers from better practices? I really believe that's a reaction to the stress of it all. But do you understand my question and kind of what I want to have a bit of a chat about?
I think there are some teachers who are feeling that we've maybe placed a resource in front of them that we want them to robotically follow. And that is not what we are looking for. We are looking for teachers to look at that curriculum, look at their students, be more knowledgeable about where their students are. And so, that's part of this with the universal screeners and the diagnostics. Those teachers are equipped with the knowledge of where their students are at, and then look at this high quality instructional resource that is grade level, and then provide opportunities to teach to those kids, to engage with the students, because we know, many of us have been in that moment where it's like we're seeing the students with the stares and they've tuned out. So we still want you to put your teacher autonomy, your teacher knowledge and capacity to that lesson. It's kind of like, they've compared it to a recipe. And so you're going to put your seasoning on it, depending on the dietary restrictions and the needs of your student, right? And to what your students prefer. And so we just want to have that common understanding of what grade level rigor looks like. And so that high quality instructional resource provides that in a sequential way. But we are asking that teachers also have that foundational knowledge so that they can and meet the needs of their students and put their seasonings on that lesson. But having that, unit internalization and the lesson internalization that teachers are going through in their PLCs is almost like putting the puzzle together so that they can see that whole unit and see where those lessons are progressing, so that they don't say, oh, there's something maybe that I'm not comfortable with, and maybe I'm going to skip that maybe strategy that is there because I'm not sure, not thinking we need it. But then if we've seen that whole unit internalization, then we know we have to have that strategy in order to get to the end of the unit. And so when teachers are doing the unit internalizations and the lesson internalizations and that intellectual prep, they are more prepared to provide their choice and their voice into that lesson and meet the needs of their students.
I love that, Chelsea. Just a quick follow-up. I see there are other hands, but The more guidance that the department can put out around the spiciness, more cooks in the kitchen, because you guys are collaborating in numeracy counts to ensure that teachers have other cooks that they can rely on and that they're planning those recipes and delivering those recipes together. I love that. For me, helping the field understand what feels like opposing dynamics of high quality instructional resources and vibrant learning, when in fact they're not at all opposite ends of a pole. It really is about how we help teachers get to vibrant sooner rather than later, how we help kids get to vibrant sooner rather than later. So I've been all over the website, and I've started to see a lot of, out of Sarah's shop, a lot of examples are popping up about what vibrant learning looks like in math, in social studies, and science, et cetera. So the more we can do, I think, to help the field get a good mental model, I think the better. So, and I'll yield my time to Kathy House.
There
you
we
can't
go.
find the mute button. There you go.
I couldn't find the mute button. I am so glad that you raised that question, Lou, because that is exactly what was on my mind. And Chelsea, I love the way you responded. And that is the response that I give when teachers ask those questions. However, I think they're getting a real mixed message. There is a misunderstanding with fidelity. And I think that has become a word that has become a huge barrier to implementation of HQIRs. And because of that word, they feel like they can't do vibrant learning. And so how do we make them understand the difference? Because I can't tell you the number of teachers, and we're working with lots of teachers in, option this and option that program, and all the things, and constantly here, I can't change anything. I have to do it exactly as it is, even to the point where they don't feel like they have autonomy to change a simple strategy when an HQIR says turn and talk, and we're encouraging them to use a multitude of other Kagan strategies for engagement, and they feel like they can't. And so exactly what Lou said, how do we communicate out that they do have some autonomy to add that spiciness and to be able to make it their own?
Fidelity is a perfectly good word that's been co-opted for evil, Kathy.
Yes. And it's like, I keep telling them, I'm like, let's think about it as integrity instead of fidelity, because fidelity just means people interpret it as this. And so if we're truly thinking about vibrant learning for educators, we've got to make sure that we're using that parallel pedagogy of what we do for when we're doing for students for vibrant learning, that we use that for our adults as well, because the work your team is doing in math is phenomenal. And the people that are involved in it, because we're supporting rank change through the KCM program, and what they're doing is phenomenal. And we just got to make sure we can get that word out at a broader scale to support those who aren't currently participating in those academies. And I will get off my soapbox now.
Nora?
I just wanted to thank you for coming today. I have not personally experienced this. I did do letters and then wasn't ready to jump back into another commitment, to tell you the truth, but I've had 4 within my school building at North Callaway Elementary participate and share things that they've learned. And from the teacher standpoint, I've heard no complaints. Everything that they've shared at faculty meetings and stuff has been beneficial to me. I do have a question or just a thought for you. And coming from Miss Ramsey teaching first grade, about to have parent-teacher conferences, and math, we're doing addition, 2-digit addition. And the question I get the most, parents are just frustrated. Why are you teaching them so many? Why are we breaking it apart? What's happening with these sticks? Why can't they just regroup or borrow or whatever it's called? So do you have any parent resources or ways to get parents vested in, I don't want to say the new way of doing math, but really it is. We switched to a new math a few years back, and that's what parents see it as. And even as a parent who has a 5th grader and then a kid who went through algebra, it's different than I ever learned or I ever taught, and I don't know about that higher level for sure. So are there any parts of what you do that would be good for teachers to give to parents?
So I learned about this week that, and I think this is a really great story, because it is somewhat a way to do this, I think. So, you know, sometimes we have parents that maybe that weren't taught math in this way. And so what this teacher was doing was having the students go home and teach their parent that strategy. And so then we all know when students teach each other, it's really enriching the learning for all. And so when the student was confident in that strategy, they could go home and teach that strategy. We're not saying 5 strategies, you know, it's 1 or 2 that are different from the way the parent was taught. And so to encourage them to teach that to their parent, because that student's going to know how to use that strategy correctly. And it is different. But I think as if a parent sees that, what parent says that's wrong? You know, when your student comes home and has that confidence in math and confidently shows them how to do this different way from them, I think it's really powerful. But it just comes from, I think we know better, we do better a little bit too. But we're all a little bit, when there's an unknown, we all have a little bit of resistance, I think, to things. And so encouraging parents to be open to hear their student teach them that new strategy or that new math that they're learning. And then the why behind that, because we know when they can move from concrete to abstract, it's really important and pivotal for their learning that they learn those strategies and can move across the spectrum to that. So I think it's messaging that with parents, and doing that and just having those one-on-one conversations as they come along, but respecting them too. But I think it is a shift, it is a change, and eventually we'll have, these students will be our teachers, and our parents, and so it will shift.
Thank you, Chelsea. I think to bring it back for me, I know, so the 40 districts that are receiving, is it more of the intense professional learning and coaching in the 40 districts that you mentioned?
The 40 districts they applied for the mini grant, the HQR grant, and it was up to their discretion how they wrote, how they address their needs. And so it should have included some curriculum-based professional learning, but it would have been probably a mixture, and those all are being approved now. So that's happening right now. So the districts were awarded at the beginning of the school year, and that's happening right now. And one more thing that I do want to mention to Nora, there are also the Kentucky Academic Standards Family Guides that are really helpful too for parents, and they're much more concise, and so families can look at those and read through those resources to feel equipped to teach, to support their students. And that's really a beginning of the school year activity to do with them, to get them on board and to learn more about those. So I wanted to also mention those family guides because they are really well crafted.
And so to kind of bring it back towards my wheelhouse, which is retention and the work that I'm doing, and I had this same question for the literacy for Christy as well. When we're thinking about the districts that are involved, and we know that, once teachers have, feel competent in the instruction, there's clarity in the instruction, which leads to their confidence. And so we know with that, that strong instructional support leads to higher retention rates. As this work is beginning and goes along, is there any data that we will have that is tied to those districts or those that are participating to see if, versus the non-participating districts, is there higher retention rates, or are there some, we keep talking exemplar models within these cohorts and so forth, as far as retention and teacher satisfaction, so to speak?
So as far as retention specifically, we are just in the early impacts of this numeracy counts efforts and statewide implementation. And so I don't necessarily have that currently.
That's what I'm saying. But as we go along, is that some data that will be collected? Because that could be part of our recommendations.
There is lots of data being collected,
Okay,
and I'm sure teachers are probably thinking that's enough surveys.
Right.
But I also love data and looking at their reflections, looking at their survey data. So we will have different data points, and some will be about capacity, whether their capacity has strengthened throughout the experience of the course or the professional learning academy. We will also have, along the way, all of these efforts have been asking for their immediate feedback and what to change for the next one. And so those are data points. And so I think that all relates to, satisfaction and teacher retention. And so I think there'll be some applicable data points that we could share. I'm just not sure I can get to, I'm still going to claim the new card, get exactly to like this teacher stayed for multiple factors and it was this. Does that make sense? So I think there's—
Oh, absolutely. But overall, just kind of looking at it overall, and just maybe the retention of the district that participated, the schools that participated, and I'm not going to say word fidelity, but just had authenticity in keeping the work going. Does that lead to, having, so kind of a bigger picture, and like you said, not maybe nailing it down to each individual, but yes, collectively.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Sarah?
Hey, Chelsea.
Hi, Sarah.
Thanks for sharing tonight with us. As I'm listening to Lou and Kathy, and then your question there about the data, it's just got me wondering, what can we do qualitatively? And I've not seen the surveys that you all provide with these teachers, but from a qualitative standpoint, getting some of our minds wrapped around the perception data from our educators. Like I hear, Lou, I echo and feel that when we talk in the field, we feel this push and pull against fidelity. But then I also think I make a lot of assumptions on the back end of that about what supports they might need or what they might actually be saying. And so I just, in our spaces, we've done a lot of empathy interviews, like sitting down or conducting focus groups. I'm just curious if you all have done that or have plans to do that. I just think to hear the human story behind the educator at a range of experience levels would be so telling, to bring that data back and synthesize that and say, okay, what assumptions have we actually been making? And what are the lived realities of these teachers and the needs that they're telling us they have to make this work best for them? I'm a nerd for the qualitative data as well. So I'm always interested to see where folks land with it.
I really appreciate that input. And then thinking about because they are still in the work, I think it's possible to implement this step with them and really draw out some of those individual experiences at varying levels. So I think that's a really great point, that while we're still, it's a good time to think about that too and plan for that, and have some of those surveys to
Chelsea,
do that.
As a quick follow-up, are you guys using an outside evaluator? To Vita's point about data,
Are you guys using a research team to follow all of those data?
So the partners have a partner in the data. Yes. So
Okay.
each of those, like Magnolia,
Oh yeah.
if you've
Okay.
heard that one,
So that
is
might be a
with,
recommendation to
yes.
incorporate more qualitative voices, and
Mhm.
even specifically to develop a research question around teacher perception of the impact of their literacy and numeracy work around, frankly, decisions to stay on the job. And you know, it'll take years, but research always does. I think it's a worthy pursuit. I love those ideas.
Yes.
Thank you. This is a very healthy conversation. And I think the next part, and I'll get my PowerPoint back up before I do, because this is not in it. As we were talking about, you know, the data, and this isn't just around literacy and numeracy. This is just from the impact survey, when the questions on feedback and coaching. Of course, this is based on 40,000 responses. So in those questions, I was just looking at those questions earlier, and the first one is, how often do you receive feedback on your teaching? And for this statewide, the response favorable rate was 63%. So that was 63% of the teachers saying frequently or almost always. And so that's a good start, but I look at the other end, you know, it's closer to half, you know, and then how useful do you find the feedback you receive in your teaching? There were of the 40,000, 66% responded favorably, and of course there's principal, teachers, and so forth in this, but to that point, it was quite useful and extremely useful. Just thinking statewide. And this is, how much feedback do you receive on your teaching? And quite a bit, and a tremendous amount. There was 58% of the teachers that responded favorably. And then, how much do you learn? Well, this one, it was maybe not. How much do you learn from the teacher evaluation processes at your school? And that response rate favorably was 53%. Where they said they learned quite a bit, or they learned a tremendous amount. So that is about half. So just thinking about the data that we already have, that's telling us that, you know, the coaching and feedback is so important, and yet, you know, we're seeing that growth in that. I think that it was up 1 percentage point. All areas had growth in them, but those were still some of in the yellow kind of zone with the coaching and feedback. So as we're, you know, developing our ideas, I just wanted to share that data as well. So
I think that's really important data, and to know that we have the Administrator Academy with principals in that academy, with district leaders, and they are truly diving into all of the resources to walk through documents, making connections to the Danielson framework. It's really impactful work for them to be doing. And leaders also have to gain in their capacity around what they're seeing. And so in order for them to give that better quality feedback, it's important that they keep learning too, because they may have come from a different level, different subject. And so I think that's also what I love about the Numeracy Academies, is that we also are providing professional learning to the leaders to provide that coaching.
And I think that's important, because when you talked about that, they reminded me also that I had looked up just the questions around professional development with the impact. And it says, at your school, how valuable are the available professional development opportunities? And the favorable responses to that, which is quite valuable or extremely valuable, was 53%. So I feel like there's some work to do there as well. One of the higher rated questions was, how helpful are your colleagues' ideas for improving your teaching? And the response favorable rate was at 74%. So, you know, learning from each other is important. And one of the things, as we're talking about professional development, coaching, and feedback, which I think is important in, thinking about our recommendations that this committee will make. It says, how much input do you have into individualizing your own professional development opportunities? And the quite a bit or a tremendous amount of input was 55% favorable. So I know that, as I travel around the state and I am talking with teachers, all of them want some, a menu of professional learning because another part of that was somewhere here is how relevant was your professional learning. How relevant have your professional development opportunities been to the content that you teach? And the favorable responses were 53% that said quite relevant or extremely relevant. So again, I see, about 50%. And so I think across the Commonwealth, there is some opportunities for us. Thank you for sharing. This has been very enlightening hearing about the work, and I'm excited to hear about it. Still having grandchildren in schools across the state. So thank you for your work. You and Christy have been all stars for us. So thank you for your expertise, and we're glad that you're on the team.
Thank you.
So again, this all is aligning and tying back to our research. So let's get, if I can get that back up. And thank everybody for their thoughtful input. I think this has been a worthy conversation.
Vita, we might want to pause a minute because
Okay.
several people didn't actually have a chance to weigh in. So I just wondered if we would pause a minute and encourage anybody who wanted to chime in after Chelsea's presentation to feel free to do that. I'm in my car, can't see hands anymore, so I apologize for just jumping right in.
Oh no worries. We want to hear all voices, and that's why we're here to have this strategic discussion. And I can't see hands either. I'm sorry. So just unmute yourself if the spirit moves you. All right.
I think I can move right on with the spirit.
Okay. All right. So then let's just kind of go back to the review of our research highlights. So again, just going back to our literature, working conditions, drive retention factors, administrative and instructional support increases teacher satisfaction. And I think that's something that we've all started connecting with there, that the instructional supports are critical in the retention. Quality, relevance, and sustainability of professional learning. It really matters to our teachers. So having, like we said, just listening with what we heard with the impact survey, the relevance of it, the need for individualization of professional learning. School culture and collective efficacy are indicators of whether or not teachers stay. Again, we've heard that collegial support, learning from each other, and so forth. And I think that leads to the mentoring and the coaching that is so critical in the work with our initiatives around literacy and numeracy and just our overall work. And that well-supported and effective literacy and numeracy initiatives provide better working conditions and higher student achievement. And I think we're going to have some great data, because what I've heard from the literacy from Christy and what I've heard from Chelsea is that it is a well-supported, systematic way and an approach that is trying to produce the best quality initiative across the state for our teachers to feel supported and to have what everybody has talked about, that autonomy to put themselves into the teaching while having this solid structure to lean on and to have the depth. And so any comments or questions around, or is anything that you want to highlight that from the research that maybe I have not?
Vita, I love those 5. I really do think, taken holistically, we're on to something about retention when we work across those 5 big ideas. For example, when I think about the professional learning, I think that's a cross-cutting theme for us. But I've heard 2 very interesting things over the course of our last conversations, and that is that teachers do want highly individualized, personalized learning opportunities, but they also love learning in a cohort model where collective efficacy rises to the top. And I don't think those are polar opposites. I think it's yes and. And so the idea that the professional learning begins to match match, good student achievement, matches good working conditions, teachers feel more supported, and then building a school culture with strong leadership where those things thrive. I mean, there really is some alchemy there that I think we can move forward around. And so I would hope that we would get to recommendations around all 5, even though I know that's really ambitious. We can cull those down to some, highest yield kinds of approaches. But I think putting these 5 out there is really smart and effective.
Anybody else?
I would just like to echo everything that Lou just said, but I also have a wondering about number 5, because we're narrowing and honing in on literacy and numeracy, which are crucial and are foundationally important for anything that we do. However, both of those initiatives leave out our high school teachers. They leave out our arts teachers. They leave out our science and social studies teachers. They leave out our CTE teachers. And so I want to ensure that this committee is looking holistically at all educators and how are we meeting their needs, because I don't want to take anything away from the importance of the work that is happening in literacy and numeracy, because it's critical. But our high school teachers are some of the hardest to fill positions. Our science teachers are some of the hardest to fill positions with high turnover rates. And so I just want to lift that up and make sure that that stays at the surface through this conversation.
I think that's a keen observation, Kathy. I appreciate it a lot. Even if that said well-supported and effective instructional practice provides better working conditions and higher student achievement, I think we could find correlated research that says the same things. I understand that as a state board and as a state, we have an agenda around numeracy and literacy right now. I totally get that, but we don't want it to be at the disadvantage of any of our other grade levels or content areas. So that's why I think even language in there, Vita, that calls out vibrant learning and high quality instructional practice. Again, not or, but if we can use that language to be more inclusive of all teachers in the process, I think that's a bigger win.
Yes, so we can expand it. So for our purposes, our question leaned into that. Even it said especially, but it wasn't like exclusive. So I think we can be inclusive in that as well, for all teachers and in those expectations, because we know, again, we talked about just having that personalized relevancy in your learning to bring forth your best practice. And so thank you for bringing that to the forefront, Ms. House. Thank you. So we are moving into kind of narrowing our focus. Potential improvement strategies aligned with our state priorities. And I think that we're grounded in that because we're talking about vibrant learning. We're talking about our literacy and numeracy initiatives across our state. We're connecting it with our impacts of us. I think the stars are aligning for us in the research, that we're connecting the dots, and there's some powerful, I think, recommendations and some powerful work that can come from to put in the hands of our boards to disseminate what, whether that's, and you guys can decide, whether that's, making sure those best practices are known. Earlier, when we were talking about, the autonomy and kind of the joy of teaching and the putting yourself into the teaching. I love that. Nothing was ever good enough for me. I was always going to start. I think I was always going to start from scratch because I wanted it to be vibrant. But I think now, the HQIRs and all those are the floor, but we can go to the moon, So I think that just gives us some foundation to stand on. And that excites me for teachers and for our profession. Working conditions that support retention and effectiveness. I think, we started leaning on those ideas last time with again, coaching and feedback, the professional learning. And we're going to get into that kind of what we saw the last time. So let me kind of hasten on. So just as we begin thinking about drafting, we're reviewing and refining our themes. And so that is totally in your hands. I just gathered the thoughts from last time and kind of, like I said, put them in some buckets. And now I'm going to just restate what I heard. And if I did not hear correctly, then we will move into having more discussion about where you want to go. But we want to narrow the focus for the recommendation development and begin drafting recommendation language aligned with research, Kentucky context, and practitioner experience. I think all three of those, that's our stool that we're standing on, and to have each one of those pieces is important. And so, get to. So just as we're drafting our recommendations, just the research evidence, we're going to think about what does the literature say about the focus area? What conditions or strategies have been shown to improve outcomes in this focus area? There's probably already some great things that are out there. I started today, there was a new report from the New Teacher Center that I started to look at, and there were some strategic ideas that they're already doing, talking about professional learning and effective data use for retention. So I think we won't have to reinvent the wheel, but we can bring those things into our recommendations. So for our Kentucky context, we kind of talked about the impact survey, what data, reports, or surveys might inform our recommendation. And I think we have several items that could. In our practice perspective, we can't leave that out. What our educators are experiencing in their work environment and what examples of promising practice already exist. And I think we have that around our literacy and numeracy, and probably in some of the cohorts and some of the districts that are already into this work or beginning this work. So I think we will see people in different parts of the continuum in this process. And so those are some things that I feel like we need to think about. Is there anything else that you feel that will bring all of our recommendations to a solid footing and foundation based around the areas that are here?
So Vita, are you thinking you'll bring us back a set of those or between now and the next meeting, we could get a set of recommendations that we could weigh in on?
Well, one of the things that we're going to, in a few moments, we have a Padlet where we're going to capture where over the next week, we're going to allow this to stay open and capture what the group says individually, and then collectively we can come back. We'll come back and narrow those, because I'm sure there will be buckets and there will be things that overlap. So whatever you need to put in there that can help us to help facilitate the recommendations. But the emergent themes from our last discussion, if I could talk about those real quick, and then maybe that will help us or kind of ground us again. Okay.
I was just wondering about the process. And on that last discussion, Vita, I don't know if this language is helpful or if it's goofy, but I like the idea of talking about vibrant professional learning. If vibrant learning is what we want for all kids, then vibrant learning is what we want for all grown-ups too, right? So if we can get some language around what vibrant professional learning looks like based on what teachers tell us about how they learn best and most joyfully, I think some of that will be really helpful in terms of recommendations as well.
You are speaking my love language. When I was a principal, I believe you had to model the professional learning the way you wanted your your teachers to in their instruction to be. So that was my jam. That, yeah, you're speaking my language there. So yes, I love that, professional vibrant learning, and I think that gets to the heart of bringing the sexy back.
I'm sorry about that already.
I'm going to use it now. I'm not going to put it on flyers, but I'm going to use it. But anyway, so emerging themes from our discussions the last time was instructional coherence and protected structures. We kind of talk about the alignment of curriculum expectations and protected collaboration time. And I think that goes back to, you know, having the time to collaborate, that collegial support, which we keep hearing again and again, that efficacy amongst teachers is so important, to the point of the cohort models and teachers learning from teachers right in their building. Sometimes we don't have to, sometimes we always think we need an outside agency, and we have the talent and the know-how right in our building, and our teachers have the expertise. I think job embedded vibrant professional learning and coaching, I think, are some ideas that I heard from last time, that sustained instructional support tied directly to classroom practice. We kind of talked about last time not being the one and done, and, you know, I'm checking the box, but that I'm getting the professional learning, and then I'm getting feedback on it. I'm getting coaching on it. It's sustained over time. It's not, you know, I think a lot of times when we bring forth initiatives, some teachers, I won't say all teachers, and think, you know, I'm going to outlast this because this is going to change. No, this is what vibrant learning looks like, and it's what it looks like. So I think that's important. And we haven't talked about this as much tonight. So I think we've kind of leaned into some other areas, but we also, the leadership capacity as a retention lever, principal leadership shaping working conditions, trust, and instructional support. So like I said, I don't think we've leaned into that as much tonight. So maybe that's not where this group is going. And then last time there was discussion around, and I think it lent itself to the literacy and now the numeracy, you know, how are ensuring teachers across districts and across the state have access to the coaching, to the resources and support, so that, you know, it is statewide. Every teacher is getting the quality of learning and the quality of support they need to stay in the profession. So those are kind of the emergent themes. Like I said, less tonight did I hear about the leadership capacity, although we always know that's important. But the other kind of support, the other three kind of do wrap around what kind of the discussions that we've had tonight. So.
Vita, I think we inferred the leadership capacity in the conversation in some of Kathy's comments earlier. And perhaps what happens is that there is a disconnect between the training around finding yourself in high quality instructional resources and not being indentured to fidelity, and what principals sometimes convey. So I do think there's I keep everything I read in preparation for these meetings. Just one earlier tonight from National Council on Teaching of Mathematics talks about how critical it is that leadership is creating the culture and the conditions for
Absolutely.
the kind of collective efficacy that we're talking about. So I don't think it should fall off the list.
Okay. All right. Okay. I want to go where you guys want to take this. And so I'm facilitating, you are leading. So that's, so to begin to your point, drafting the recommendation, when we think about the theme 1, instructional coherence and protected structures, just the alignment of the curriculum, professional learning and expectations. I think we've talked about, protecting the PLC and the planning time. Kind of to last time we kind of talked about the workload, just reducing the competing initiatives and really focusing on what matters and what is going to move us forward, and systems that allow teachers to focus on instruction. And And so those systems that we're creating, the literacy and numeracy and the supports and HQIRs, that they're taking that as the ground, and then using that to move to higher ground with students. And so that's kind of the first thing. Any thoughts around that? And then theme 2, job embedded professional learning and coaching. Knowing that ongoing coaching cycles and modeling are important. One question that I had earlier that I had written down, I didn't ask it, but where are the coaches coming from? Like even in the literacy and the numeracy, where are who are the coaches and where are they coming from? Because that's always critical, that the mentor, who is doing the mentoring and the coaching. And I think we can, lean into that. Curriculum-based professional learning tied to our practice. Opportunity for teachers to observe and learn from their peers, and sustained support rather than the one-time training. Again, just things that kind of were lifted from our discussions. Equitable access to instructional support, access to coaching and professional learning across districts. I think that was highlighted. I think last time there were some structure barriers that were highlighted, like, if I'm, in far western or far eastern Kentucky, am I getting the same opportunities, the travel, the substitutes, the funding? And that there are differences across rural, suburban, urban context. And so context does matter. And so making sure that it is relevant, it's personalized, it is meeting the needs of the community, while still maintaining the high quality standard, and ensuring expectations are matched with support. And I think I see CJ's hand. Yes, sir.
Yep, you do. Sorry. Hi, everyone. I've been listening to a lot, but I did jump on late. We had a fun little Pi Day event at Beechwood High School with all of our 3rd and 8th graders that I was helping run. But anyway, Vita, I had seen, did I just see a slide that mentioned with like professional learning, like among like cohorts or longer ventured things? I just think with the theme tonight being numeracy, and if this has been talked about before I joined in, I'm so sorry. But we have many, but 3 that come to mind really quickly. We have 3 just top-notch stellar organizations in the state: KCM, Advanced Kentucky, PIMSR. And I just think, I've been at events for all 3 of those organizations through my years of teaching and have had many colleagues. They just offer some of the best stuff, specifically in the math world, and they do offer a lot of those models. So I just think continued funding for those organizations, because they do rely a lot on decisions that are made at Frankfurt, would be an important piece in that whole puzzle.
Thanks for bringing
Vita,
that
I have to ask a math teacher if you can do Pi Day on 3.12.
Yeah, I know. It's like we're approximate Pi Day. No one wanted to say one Friday. No one wanted to come this one Saturday. So this was close enough. Close enough accuracy. Yeah, I know.
I just want to put the exclamation
point
on CJ's point.
Yeah.
In that,
yeah, please.
One of the things that we do know is that teacher isolationism often contributes to poor working conditions and senses of dissatisfaction. So to several of the conversations we've had tonight, Vita, we could thread through this notion of collective efficacy, collaboration. Don't do this job alone. It shouldn't be a solo act. I think that's really important. And our professional organizations, of course, are another way to attack that isolationism.
I'm sorry to chime in again. I
No
promise I
worries.
won't keep doing this. This theme is very near and dear to my heart as a former district leader of a very tiny district in the state of Kentucky. There are so many barriers for our rural districts in getting access. They didn't have coaches. Many of our rural districts don't have coaches. It's, they have to drive an hour to go to any kind of professional learning. They don't have any substitutes. And so this is a huge, huge barrier for our small rural districts. And I don't have an answer, but I feel like this is an empty recommendation because we're just saying this is what should happen and we know this is what should happen, but how do we ensure that it can happen? You know, I love the work that Letters and KCM are doing. However, that is also a choice that people are making to commit to 2 years of doing work above and beyond their professional learning hours. And so I want to stay grounded in what is the reality of a recommendation that we can make that is going to have impact on a greater number of our educators. I don't want to dispel anything that is going on out there, but this is near and dear to my heart, knowing what happens in a rural district. And you know, I don't want to give a recommendation that is going to be empty and not make a difference. And so how do we get some meat behind this to help those districts retain their teachers?
I want to echo all of that because I'm also from a rural district. I'm from Grayson County. So I believe that this is something like I don't know the specific number of coaches that we have in our high school, but I know of at least one who goes around the school sometimes, pops into some of the classrooms and just tries to help out some of our teachers. But I believe there's also a way to combine this with the one we previously spoke about, which is more specific to coaching. So both theme 2 and theme 3, like trying to combine those into like a cohesive draft that would make sense for every district, all suburban, rural, urban, but also adding a big emphasis on coaching and having all those support structures available for all the teachers, even the administration too.
Thank you for sharing your insight. That's powerful for us. So around those kind of recommendations, kind of to kind of start wrapping this up and us having opportunity kind of individually to share, and then at our next meeting, really we've kind of narrowed the focus here, but even going and really begin drafting the recommendations. So we have a Padlet. And I think Jarvis is going to email this to you. And everything that you see here, the PowerPoint will be posted. And also, Chelsea, do you mind to send us your presentation from tonight? Both presentations have been awesome. And do you mind sending that to us so that we can also post that in our collaborative folder? But on this Padlet, let me see if I can open it. It's not on my screen, is it? Can you guys see that? No? Oh, let me stop sharing it. Let's see. Jarvis, can you share the Padlet or no?
Give me 1 second. I just clicked on it. I'm having a ton of computer issues.
Are you okay? Okay. Well, it
but
will be sent to you, and I just kind of wanted them to see what it looked like, so they would know under each of those recommendations. Let's see. Okay, who's got it up? So yeah. So kind of just, you know, what recommendation is being proposed and kind of those emerging themes. You'll have the PowerPoint to go back and to have the language around what we have discussed, along with we will have the meeting minutes from this meeting. And so that can also be utilized for this Padlet. And then just what does the researcher data say? And it may be just, you know, a clip that you've gotten from the research. It may be something that we have noted, our expected impact and considerations. And I think that's what we're hearing tonight, like what considerations, you know, if we, you know, again, if it's a recommendation that that is within the purview of KBE and EPSB, or even if it's not, that they can disseminate it to the forces at BEAV and all the network of influence that they have. So we're not limiting you, but we're just grounding us in those recommendations, those themes, and that came out of our discussion, and we've added to that tonight. And so this will help us to begin to correlate into the themes, everything that you put in this Padlet, and we will add to and come back next time. And our time together will be spent looking at this and drafting the language that we want to send forward. Does that make sense? And is that doable? Can I just say, don't tell the other committees, but I have the best committee ever. You guys have just, I mean, really, yes, given just a lot of food for thought based in your experiences, based on the research. And I thank you guys for, spending time in the research and spending time in the data, and also bringing your practitioner experiences and into this. And I think, like I said, without all three of those, it doesn't work. And so we need all of it. And then having our experts to share with us has just, it's helped me. I've learned a lot through them. And so that's what we have for tonight. And our next meeting is March the 31st. Same time, 5 to 6:30. And in between that time, the Padlet will be open for you to start drafting your language and what you would like to see. And I'm sure there's going to be themes that we can merge together. And so whatever you want to put there is fine. We will take that information and kind of correlate it again, like we did tonight, under our buckets of themes, to see where we want to go, where you would like to go. I'm just the facilitator. Jarvis and I, and we've had a good time doing this with you guys because of just the work you've put in. So thank you. And again, I'm always so grateful to give you back just a little bit of time, but I will be here until 6:30. So if there's any questions, if something is not clear, please stay. You can ask. And is there any questions, any concerns, anything further that, I don't want to leave until, like Dr. Fields used to say, all hearts and minds are clear. So is there anything else that we can? Yes, ma'am.
I like Nora am a first grade teacher in Western Kentucky.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we had some questions about the math. Is that going to be open to preschool? Because our students are coming in with 0 or limited math abilities and just no exposure. That's our big concern. Even coming into kindergarten, we had kindergarten registration and exposure to numbers. Like, they see this and that's the pause button. They don't know that's 11. So we were just wondering if the kindergarten teachers were wondering if they're going to be opening preschool. I know preschool is not funded through the state across the board, and but we see a disconnect from preschool and their standards and kindergarten and first grade. So we were just wondering about that.
I do not know the answer to that. But I will find out, and Priscilla, I will get back with you on that.
I see Mickey there.
Yes, just real quick. Thank you for the question. I will say the legislation that earmarks the funding for numeracy counts it designates kindergarten through 8th grade. The same thing has happened with our early literacy initiatives, but our Office of Special Education and Early Learning was able to partner to allow some exposure to letters for preschool teachers. So we are absolutely open to it, but I don't think going into this next academic year, anything will be in place for preschool teachers at this point, but agree with you that it is of great need to support really P20 in all of this work. So it's definitely heard.
Thank you. Any other questions? So you got a little homework to do. I've given you homework. I'm sorry. I know how busy you are. I am as well, but if you will, spend some time when you're able, it doesn't have to be a dissertation. It can be a couple of sentences, and just so do what you're able to do before our next meeting. And if you could, we'll keep the Padlet open for a week or so. So if you could get in there, because then we'll need to try to put it into some semblance of a form for you. So we'd like to be able to do that as well. So thank you for your attentiveness.
And I will send you guys the link. I think I need to restart my computer. A bunch of stuff is just not responding right now. So including my email. So the plan was to send it to you
Jarvis.
guys.
He was off today and came anyway. He's traveling, and so I appreciate him. He was out on leave today, and he still wanted to be here with you guys. He just had to be. So, thank you, Jarvis. So he will get all of that to you when he returns on Monday. So enjoy yourself. Thank you all so much. If you need us, reach out to us, please. Thank you.